for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Good day to everybody, and welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. I'm Steven Jodder in Wisconsin. Down in Texas is the one and only Armand Kafai. Up in Minnesota is Jake Watroba. Listeners, if you haven't been paying attention, we're going through a mini-series looking at the potential of the relocation of the Columbus Crew by Anthony Precourt, the owner of the Columbus Crew. Last episode, we focused on the Ohio perspective. This episode will focus on the Texas perspective. Follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. We got Chris Bils of the Statement. He's going to be joining us to talk about what's going down in Austin, whether or not they really want the team, what the feel is. We also have San Antonio FC Managing Director Tim Holt. Armand and Jake, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I feel alive. Jake, I know you're feeling good. You're in Moscow right now.
Yeah, Red Square. Go El Tree.
Yes. No World Cup coverage on this episode.
No World Cup coverage though.
We're going to talk about the potential of the Columbus Crew relocating. And one thought I have is how much MLS has been buried by the World Cup and how much the World Cup commands everything we do when it shows up on Twitter and everything. I'm just quick question: have you guys been paying attention to what's going on in Major League Soccer or USL? Or I know the U.S. Open Cup apparently had some action going on that I don't think many people really cared about.
I did, because Johan Crozet just scored a freaking banger from outside the box.
Yep, and
it was a great strike. But, I mean, it's pretty expected to not care about MLS and care about the World Cup when the World Cup's the biggest competition in the world.
Well, the nice thing is they don't overlap. So you could watch World Cup in the morning and then
watch MLS
a few hours
night.
later, MLS. Exactly. That's kind of the beauty of it.
I guess.
Actually.
It is.
That's what I did Friday. Friday, I watched, you don't tell my boss, but I basically sat at my desk Friday and just watched the World Cup on my phone. And then Friday night, granted, I didn't watch much of it, maybe about 10 to 15 minutes worth, but I watched LA Galaxy against the Portland Timbers for a little bit in the U.S. Open Cup. So you can do both. It's okay.
No, you can't do both, but it raises an interesting question when it comes to marketing your club. Especially in the state of Texas, being so vast, you already have to. If Austin were to get a team, you would have 3 in one state. Now, Armand, you cover FC Dallas. Do you think Austin Villa, whatever the name would be, affects FC Dallas in any way?
The only way I see it affecting FC Dallas is that some of the fans in Austin, because I do know there are some Austin-based FC Dallas fans, might jump ship to join the Austin team, which, I mean, it would make total sense if they did. I mean, there's not much impact I think it would make on FC Dallas itself, because the sheer proximity. I mean, it's a 3.5 hour drive from Dallas to Austin. Houston, it might be less. And I haven't seen anything from FC Dallas that's going to prompt me to say that anything in MLS will make them change how they do things. I think they'll always do things the way that they want to, and there won't be any changes. I mean, unless Austin comes out just dominating and teams and fans, from Frisco start jumping ship to Austin, which I would find really bizarre, because
I don't think that would happen.
That wouldn't make any sense. But I think that's the only way you'd see any potential changes for Dallas if Austin were to come into the league.
Houston is closer. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. I think both fan bases, when it comes to losing people, I don't think there's much to worry about. I do wonder if it puts a little more pressure on the front offices to bring in talented players to succeed, because I think Austin will inherit a really good team in the Columbus Crew if everything, just shifts. So there might be the need or the want to go out there and be the best team in Texas. Now, would there be a realignment? Would Austin still stay in the East when you have Dallas and Houston be in the West?
There's no way they'd have to move to the West. But there's no way that team would stay in the East. There'd have to be realignment. I guess you'd see a team like maybe Minnesota move to the East. Would that be fair, Jake?
Keep in mind though that Cincinnati is coming into the league next year.
So with Nashville.
So Nashville. So there's your replacements essentially for Columbus.
But right now we're at an imbalance. So we're at 13 and right. It's not split. It's 12 and 11, right? It's 23. So if you have moving to the Austin, you'd have team in. So that 13 and 11. Nashville isn't coming in until 2020. So I guess you would just move them over and have Cincinnati slot in to be 13 and 12. Wait for Cincinnati and then become 13 and 13.
So right,
yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I know. It is interesting how the fact that you will have to realign MLS if Columbus Crew moves. Wow.
My math is wrong.
It's 11 and 12.
It's 11 and 12. You have 12 and I for some reason counted Columbus as an expansion side. So it'd be 12. It'd be 12 and 12. So you'd end up having a 13 and 11 because Austin is going to move to the West. There's no way a team in Texas is going to play in the Eastern Conference. So what team are you going to move to the East? I think it would have to be Minnesota. Nashville isn't in the league. They start 2020, not 2019. 2020. So you got 13 and 11. You're gonna temporarily move a team to the East. Then is that what you're saying? You're gonna have to move someone to the East. There's an imbalance. I think you move Minnesota. It makes the most sense.
It's interesting how this could potentially affect your Minnesota United, Jake. Somewhere thousands of miles away.
You know, I'm not too worried about it. They can't compete in a bad Western Conference, so I don't think moving to the East will have much effect on where they are in the standings.
No, but when it comes to the front office, Armand, do you think Dallas would be incentivized to go out and make some bigger splashes if Austin are going to be a flamboyant team that we see in the Columbus Crew? I think Austin would rally behind it. People would be excited. I think there needs to be a buzz. I also think the rivalry aspect in Texas would grow stronger, and I think you would have more fun with these, I guess, inter rivalry games.
Yeah, I don't think anything Austin does will impact the way FC Dallas does business. Atlanta came in, started spending, and didn't really have an impact on any other team in the league. I think it's only going to come at a certain point where MLS just becomes big enough and you have to spend extraordinary amounts of money that Dallas will start shifting. I generally don't think anything that Austin will do will impact FC Dallas's front office and the way they think things, and especially with how they do things off the field. I think things would stay the exact same, to be quite honest.
Houston being a little bit closer, again, it's 2.5 hours, so you're talking about quite a bit chunk of land. Do you think we could say the same thing about Houston?
Houston's tough. I'm not sure because, like you said, the proximity, it's a little bit closer, but I also don't think they would change things either. They have no reason to. Their team has a bit of success with the lowest payroll in MLS. If you can keep that up, I mean, why would you try to change things?
It would benefit the rivalry aspect. I think there's no doubt about that.
Create a mini Cascadia Cup, something like that.
I was going to say, you stepped on my touchdown call there, Armand. I was just about to say
the Lone
Texas
Star Cup.
or something stupid like that.
But, I mean, Jake, as somebody who has really no connection to Texas, would this be a fascinating thing for a neutral viewer to have Dallas versus Austin or Houston versus Austin?
If there is if it's like I'm trying to think of the best word here. I don't know if passionate would be the best word, but if it was a rivalry like Seattle-Portland where, I mean, because it seems like MLS likes to push the LA rivalry or the New York rivalry.
The fake rivalry in your
rivalries,
terms.
Yeah, which I guess you could argue that an Austin rivalry with either FC Dallas or Houston would be kind of fake in a way too. But But if there was the passion there from the fans, each group of fans doesn't like each other, or if there's a aspect that that like the cities like Houston doesn't like Austin, or Austin doesn't like Dallas, kind of like what you have with Seattle and Portland. If there's something like that, then yeah, maybe that could be a good rivalry too. I don't know. I kind of don't like those forced rivalries. It's better if they just kind of happen organically.
Are you intrigued by the idea of having a team in Austin, Texas?
Me?
Yeah. I mean, I'm asking you specifically because you have Armand and I connected to Texas, so we have a biased view already to begin with.
I'm biased.
So
a team in Austin? No, I don't think that makes sense. A team in San Antonio? I'm listening. That's more intriguing to me.
All right. Well, well, Armand, do you have any final thoughts here before we get to Chris?
I guess it'd be interesting to see if there even would be a Lone Star Cup considered by fan bases. I mean, naturally they should be, but it seems like a lot of these fans are kind of treating Austin as like, oh, the other guys, like not even like relevant in their conversation. So I would be intrigued to see how that would play out.
Absolutely. Well, up next is Chris Bils.
Joining us now on the show to give us the Austin perspective of things is Chris Bils, a freelance writer for the Austin American Statesman. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to survive the heat and World Cup. It's good times, but thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It must be busy for you covering what's going on with the city council, the fact that you might get an MLS team, and then all this World Cup stuff.
It's been crazy as far as the MLS stuff goes. Since October, it feels like it's been nonstop. But yeah, a lot more city council meetings and a lot more legal briefings than I'm used to.
Yeah, we had
Andrew Erickson
of the Columbus Dispatch, and he said he had read a ton of legal documents. But walk us through the latest updates on where we're at with the potential of the Columbus Crew relocating to Austin, Texas.
Yeah, so we're kind of gearing up here for a good old-fashioned Texas shootout a little bit with the Austin City Council, it seems like. So on Friday, they released the agenda for the June 28th City Council meeting, which we knew was going to be a big one. And there are two draft resolutions, each with 4 city council members signed on to them. So if you're unfamiliar with Austin City Council, there's 10 council members and then the mayor. So there's 11 votes. And so you have, on one side, you have 4 co-sponsors for a resolution that would solicit plans for development of McCalla Place, which would include professional sports stadium plans, but also other development. So that's basically referring to some other proposals that have been made in the last few weeks since this proposal came out from Precourt Sports Ventures. So that would be kind of a longer process, and that's definitely not what Precourt Sports Ventures wants. But the other item 64 on the agenda for the 28th is it's a proposed or a resolution that would direct the city manager to begin negotiations with Precourt Sports Ventures regarding a Major League Soccer stadium project to be located at McCalla Place, and it gives kind of a list of outcomes for the city manager to try and achieve in that negotiation process. But that's very much what Precourt Sports Ventures has been looking for, is the city council to say, okay, let's go ahead and negotiate a deal here for this land. And I apologize that things are kind of dry with the language on these things, but I find it better if I just read straight off the paper so I don't mess anything up.
Chris, can you talk to us about the public's perspective on this whole deal? Do they support it? Are they against the Crew relocating to Austin? Can you talk about that with us for a little bit?
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Because so Precourt Sports Ventures came out in October and said that they were exploring moving their, the Columbus Crew down to Austin. And initially, I think, a lot of people were at first kind of skeptical. Austin's kind of flirted with professional sports in the past, and a lot of people kind of thought it was just a ruse to try and get Columbus to pony up some more money for a stadium. But I mean, you guys have been paying attention to this. Precourt Sports Ventures has been pretty serious throughout the whole process. So it's been kind of an educated. We've been kind of in the weeds covering this thing since October. A lot of people, in the public have just kind of, been skeptical from the outset. And then the people that have been on board have been just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And so now I think we're at the point where I think a larger portion of the city knows what's going on. You've got some soccer supporters on one side that are really, interested in this happening, reaching out to city council, kind of posting things on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, social media. And then you've got on the other side kind of this stout Austin, these people that have lived in Austin for years that whenever things like this kind of come up, they are against, they tend to be against, development like this. So you've got kind of a political war going on with it seems to be a very Austin showdown, I guess. If that makes sense.
What about the council members themselves, though? Would they be excited by the prospect of having a professional team in all of a business, I guess, that comes with it, and all the publicity and I guess the good and the bad?
Yeah, so that's kind of where the split is on the city council. You've got council member Kathy Tovo, who has kind of been leading this process, you could say. She's the one who drafted the resolution back in March that directed the city manager to do a study of McCalla Place, which is the location up in North Austin that we're talking about, this proposed stadium site. And she's one of the council members that's now co-signed on this resolution that would direct the city manager to start negotiating with Precourt Sports Ventures. And she's signed on with that, along with the Mayor Steve Adler, council member Pio Renteria, and council member Delia Garza. And so those four, it seems, are, receptive to the idea, if not, completely positive on the idea of having a major league sports team. They had their first discussion about the proposal earlier this week on Tuesday, or last week on Tuesday. And that was when you first started. I think everyone on the city council they want to know more about what the exact terms of the deal are going to be, but those were definitely receptive to the idea.
Can you give us more information on McCullough Place? Because, I've been doing a little bit of research, and it seems that it was some sort of like warehouse or something like that, and now it has all of this interest. With Precourt looking to move there, and the other proposal that was mentioned last week. Can you just tell us more about the actual site of where they want to build the stadium?
Yeah, just for context, this is the third site that has been brought up in this process. Initially, they wanted to locate the stadium at Butler Shores Metropolitan Park, which is more downtown. It's a cluster of baseball fields along the river. But, the political climate around that was, it was just a no-go with there being parkland along with another park, Guerrero Park. So now we're to McCalla Place, which is, I believe, I don't get my numbers right, but I think 11 miles outside the city, or outside downtown, but it is very close to a shopping center called the Domain, which is, if you're familiar with Austin, it's kind of been referred to as they want it to be the second downtown. It's there's a lot of new businesses going in, large office buildings, some trendy shops and restaurants. It's a really nice place to hang out on a Saturday night. And that would be within a mile of this McCall place, which is it's a 24-acre plot of land that's sat empty for about 25 years. Used to be a chemical plant, but it shut down, I believe, in 1985 when there was an explosion on the site. And then the city bought it eventually. And in 2003, they were working to build a water plant there, or a city water facility there. And there was another explosion, which actually injured several workers. And so they went through the process to remediate the site. They believe that it's safe now, but it has sat empty for a number of years, and nothing's been done with it. But a couple of years ago, there were the city got close to putting out a request for proposal, and that kind of died down when the city manager at the time left. And now you've got some of these developers that were interested in the land then kind of raising their hand and saying, hey, wait a second, you're going to land away for a stadium, we still have interest. And so that's kind of the context. And I apologize to get kind of long-winded there, but wanted to make sure to provide the context that you guys are looking for. Yeah.
I want to ask you about Austin's soccer culture. Do you think a team could strive there? Obviously, you have a team in Dallas, you have a team in Houston. Do fans or soccer fans support either one of those? Do you think that it would be even more successful than what you see in Dallas and Houston, where there are two clubs there that tend to not do the best when it comes to attendance across Major League Soccer?
I mean, that's the biggest unknown, right? I mean, it's Precourt's very confident in that. That's the reason that they say they want to move to Austin, is the demographics fit what they're looking for with MLS. It's young, multicultural. Those things are all true. It's a very millennial city, and I do know a lot of people that follow soccer here in Austin and are very passionate about soccer, but. We just saw the TV numbers come out the other day that Austin was the number 2 or number 3 market for the opening game of the World Cup. Those things pop up every once in a while. Austin was in the top 10, I believe, for the MLS playoffs last year. But I would say it's still an unknown, just because there's been 2 former professional soccer teams here. They didn't do well. There's tons of circumstances that led to that, the poor attendance at those games. I don't know if you guys want to get into that whole backstory. It's kind of interesting in itself, but I would say it's still an unknown. But there are people that are very confident, and there is a soccer culture here. It's just a matter of doing it the right way to draw in all those different communities in Austin, because the soccer culture here is very spread out. You've got the families in the suburban areas who, take their kids to play for Lone Star Soccer Club is one of the top clubs in the country when it comes to U.S. Soccer Development Academy and things like that. And then you've got, large Hispanic and Latino culture here. Obviously, that's been a thing that MLS has struggled to draw from in other markets, but some markets it's worked fairly well. And so it's just a matter of doing the right things, and that'll be determined if and when Precourt Sports Ventures gets the chance to do that, I guess. That's the best way I can answer that question. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer, but that's been something that I've been trying to figure out myself for the last 8 or 9 months, is how quickly is this thing going to take off? It's still a question mark to me.
Hey, Chris, I kind of want to switch gears here and talk a little bit more about Anthony Precourt and his intentions with the Columbus Crew. About 2 weeks ago, we reported that a source with knowledge of the situation had told us that there was conversations between Precourt and Sacramento. And then about, I think, last weekend, too, there was an article in the Sacramento Bee kind of hinting towards the Sacramento Republic ownership having discussions with Precourt. They were essentially looking for another investor in order to get the club to MLS. Have you heard of those discussions at all? Have you heard any whispers of Precourt maybe looking to move Columbus to Sacramento instead of Austin?
Yeah, it's that's definitely been something that's been brought up throughout this process. We talked to Anthony Precourt himself in March, and our great columnist Kirk Bowles asked him straight up about whether that was a possibility, whether there was what's Plan C, right? Have you been talking to Sacramento? We asked him straight up, and Anthony didn't really give a straight answer. He said, we're here to talk about Austin. He said the same thing when we tried to ask some questions about Columbus. He wanted to talk about Austin in that interview. He made that very clear. So whether that says that he's had discussions in Sacramento, I wouldn't go that far, but it wouldn't surprise me that plan. Say this, I do believe that they're very serious in pursuing Austin. I don't think that it's any kind of play to try and get money from other markets by any stretch. They're serious. They say they've spent $2 million here trying to make this thing happen. So I do think this is their plan A. This is what they want to happen. But if they don't get the right thing in the city council meeting on June 28th, all bets are off of what that might mean, I would say.
And in the article from the Sacramento Bee, it also mentioned that an Austin law firm was seeking correspondence between, looked like, I think, a Precourt and the Sacramento. Do you know anything about what that Austin law firm was looking for, if you are familiar with it?
I'm not familiar with that. I have some ideas kind of poked around a little bit, but I don't have anything to add to that, really.
Is there a feeling that Precourt could, I guess, for a lack of a better term, snake Austin to go to Sacramento? And do the council members, do they have any input into the talks between Precourt and another city like Sacramento?
I don't believe that the city council has any knowledge of any talks with another city. Sorry, go back to what was your initial question there?
Well, I was just wondering if the city council had any knowledge, or if you think they take that in consideration regarding Precourt's Plan C, whether or not they are taking that as a real option, or if that's in the back of their mind when it comes to, okay, what should we do here?
Yeah, I don't think that's really under consideration for the city council, as far as they know what the timeline that Precourt is giving them is that they want a decision before the city council goes on a 6-week break. They won't meet again until August, I believe the first or second week of August, after this June 28th meeting. And they've said that they want to move the team here in March of 2019. So next spring, which means that they need the process to start moving forward here in Austin. As far as Sacramento, I've still got a lot of questions when it comes to that possibility, of whether that even is a possibility.
Right.
Because as far as we know, Don Garber has admitted on multiple occasions now that there was some kind of clause in the contract that allowed Anthony Precourt to move the team to Austin. What the terms of that we're still not sure, but it would seem to me, based on the things that have been on the record from Don Garber, that clause does not allow him to move to another city. And so what would that mean? Would that mean that he would just become another owner for the Republic, and they would fold the Columbus Crew? I don't know. But the terms of that contract, and you guys know as well as I do that MLS can write the rules as they go, right? So they could change their mind on that, but everything that we know to this point doesn't point to me. It doesn't point to the Columbus Crew moving directly to Sacramento in 2019. That seems a bit quick, if not against everything that we've kind of known about this process here in Austin and in Columbus.
Well, Chris, I'm going to ask you one last question here. And do you have any feeling in your gut where this is going to end up? Will Austin have, I guess, rebrand to Austin Villa? That's what I want, Austin Villa. I believe that's an awesome name. But where do you see this Where do you see this going?
I do have two names trademark. I believe it's FC Austin and Austin Athletic. And I have heard Austin Villa. That would be a terrific name, but I haven't seen it on the books yet. So still, I guess keep your fingers crossed.
I guess we got
to
trademark it or something now, right?
Yeah, there you go. Then maybe you could get some money. But as far as my gut, that's the big question. I get that question probably every day, 3 or 4 times a week, and if not multiple times a day. And that's not. It doesn't. I think I've been following this as closely as anybody, along with Andrew Erickson of the Dispatch. She's done tremendous work. They're keeping people informed, and I think we'll have a whole lot better idea after this June 28th City Council meeting. But I would say that Anthony Precourt's will is to move the team to Austin. But whether or not he can get that done or not is still up in the air. That's the answer that I have at this point. And as far as a gut feeling, I'm just not going to go there because I don't think that I don't think that's my role in this as a journalist. I'm just trying to follow things, keep up with it as closely as I can, and when there's news to report, I'll report it. But you guys. If you've been following, you probably know as much as I do.
Yeah. Well, I think Andrew said it's just unpredictable, and if somebody tells you they do know, then they definitely don't know. But we appreciate it, Chris. Where can
that's a good answer as well.
Yeah, where can we find your stuff? Tell the listeners where we can keep up to date with what's going on in Austin and where we can find your work.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter. It's just at Chris Bils, just ChrisBils. And then statesman.com is where you'll find myself and Kevin Lytle keeping you up to date on the latest in Austin, as well as I've been kind of trying to keep up with this lawsuit in Columbus as well. And we'll just keep rolling on.
Well, we appreciate it, Chris. Thanks again.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much.
Big thank you to Chris Bils. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter and check out his stuff. It's wonderful. It really catches you up to date. But up next is San Antonio FC Managing Director Tim Holt. All right, listeners, we are honored to have our next guest. It is the San Antonio FC Managing Director and Sports and Entertainment Vice President, Tim Holt. Tim, how's it going?
Great, fellas. Great to be with you. Doing great.
Tim, you actually were the president of USL from 2009 to 2015 for our listeners that don't know that. And actually, I was actually in San Antonio recently. I was actually there last Wednesday and Thursday to catch the San Antonio FC Dallas match. And let me just say that the way y'all are set up, it's brilliant. When I was there, I was genuinely impressed. And for our audience out there that doesn't know much about San Antonio, Tim, what is the soccer market like over there?
Well, it's a terrific soccer market. Like most markets in the country, from a player participation, especially at the youth level, it's very robust. There's probably about 24 clubs that are working hard to grow the sport at all levels of the game, boys and girls. And then since for about the past 10 years, there's been professional soccer on the scene. First for the San Antonio Scorpions and the NASL, and then since 2016, when Spurs Sports and Entertainment, which is the San Antonio Spurs of the NBA, acquired the rights to the stadium here, Toyota Field, seats about 8,000, and the rights to a USL franchise. We're going into our third year. So, we look at our job is running the next leg of the relay and developing the sport at the professional level, but also creating a direct pathway for players with our academy system all the way through. So it's an exciting time to be involved with San Antonio soccer. I think all of us that are involved with the project feel pretty fortunate to be involved.
What's the comparison like to other markets in Texas compared to Dallas and Houston?
Well, it's difficult. Dallas and Houston are obviously, major, probably top 10 markets in the country. So double population size from San Antonio, which probably, if you look at it from a Major League Soccer standpoint, is more akin in terms of population base to the Orlandos and the Portlands and the and the Salt Lakes, if you will. So it's a major market. It's the 7th largest city in the country, but in terms of metropolitan market, it's somewhere between 20 and 30 in the country. So again, big city, major league market in this country, but it's got a good sort of small town feel to it in terms of how it supports everything San Antonio, whether it's community events, civic related stuff, and certainly the sports teams, as we've seen with the Spurs and their following here, not just in San Antonio, but in Central and South Texas, is pretty special. So we enjoy sort of the best of all worlds. It's a big enough market that you can generate revenue, get great fan support, corporate support, but there's a real sense of San Antonio here when you live in the market.
Absolutely. And Tim, San Antonio FC was created in 2016, as you mentioned. How has the club transformed throughout the past couple of seasons?
Well, the first year was things were happening very quick. The Spurs acquired the rights, I think, right around New Year's Day. Mm-hmm. And the first season, was a couple of months ahead. So, myself, I had come in around February 1st. Darren Powell, who's our head coach and technical director, had come in a few weeks before me. And really the name of the game was to just get a team on the field and get into operations. The long-term ambition here has been to try to bring Major League Soccer to San Antonio, a second Major League team to San Antonio. And we all felt the best way of doing that was by performing as a professional soccer club at the USL level. So filling the stadium, putting a good competitive team on the field, being engaged in the community, not just the soccer community, but the entire community, and having a, sort of a soccer authentic game atmosphere that was uniquely San Antonio, very organic. So we set out to that right away. First year went by very quickly. I think last year 2017 was a major step forward for us in terms of just the fan support, corporate support, team performance on the field, and we've tried to take that further in 2018. Another sort of key part of our DNA is, and I feel like in the year 2018, it's no longer optional, but to be involved in player development and leading player development from the ages of 10, 11, 12, all the way through the professional team in a market, providing a sort of defined player pathway. So we've set out with 2, 3, actually it'll be 4, this next cycle, fully funded U.S. Soccer Development Academy teams, U12 through U15, building up to connecting those two with our first team. And we're just now, our oldest group is still young, but we've just now have some players that are getting into training with the first team, and feel like that's going to be a major part of how we build San Antonio FC in the future with San Antonio kids, homegrown players. And it takes a while. It's a big investment by the ownership and by the club. But for us, that's, sort of one of our defining characteristics.
Now, Tim, we're going through a mini-series looking at the relocation of the Columbus Crew and the causes and effects to all that. And we'll get to that, how it affects San Antonio FC. But I do want to ask you, you have spent time in MLS and now you're in USL. How do the two leagues compare to each other?
It's a great question. So fortunate to have a couple different vantage points from USL, first at the league level and helping, develop and grow the league at different, points of time, and now seeing, how it's thriving at this stage is fulfilling. And seeing it from the team side is very different than the league side. So it changes your perception a little bit. And then with MLS, when I was in Orlando, seeing a market in a club that went from USL, as successful as you could possibly be, into Major League Soccer, and seeing the challenges of that. Look, MLS, is leading the sport in this country. The profile of the league, both domestically and globally, is better than it's ever been before. The games are entertaining. The broadcast deals allow the fans to consume it week in, week out. Some of the best players in the world are playing in the league. So it's terrific. You just go back 10 years or 20 years and compare it and see how far it's come. But USL, differently, in more of a grassroots manner, is building sort of the foundation of professional soccer below that. So they're different in terms of, I guess the overall system. MLS still maybe a little more centralized, USL a little more decentralized, although probably more similarities than differences there, to be frank. And really, they're kind of grown together, with MLS now fielding second teams in a dozen markets that play week in, week out in USL. So it's good to see how that's happening, and the relationship's strong, yet, both have their own individual, sporting and business objectives as they go forward. So I think people think that they're radically different. They're probably more similar than different, both in the business of, providing professional soccer at the highest level in the markets in which they operate and field teams. But everybody with the same objective and goal, which is sustainable pro soccer leagues for, generations to come, hopefully.
Tim, you actually helped get that MLS-USL relationship going, right?
Yes, that's correct.
How did that come about?
Well, look, it's, if you go back to 2011, 2012, 2013, both leagues, USL was more at a crossroads. The NASL had come onto the scene and with a lot of ambition and some teams, and USL was at a point figuring out what was the best model to grow that league into what it is become now. And one of those things was having not just a closer relationship with Major League Soccer, because the relationship with Major League Soccer was good, but a real connection to Major League Soccer and finding ways for collaboration. And it just so happened at that specific point in time, Major League Soccer didn't feel like it was getting enough bang for its buck on the reserve league that it was running independently, and felt the best platform for player development would be either for MLS teams to affiliate with existing USL teams in a more direct way than it had done in the past, and then also to have the option of fielding a second team in the USL. So timing was good, number of meetings and conversations with the leagues and the team owners on both sides over the course of maybe a year resulted in that partnership. And that partnership kind of evolved. The first year, I think it was just a bunch of affiliations and some interleague play. And then it really, LA Galaxy was the first club that really got in and did the second team, and then the proliferation of that since. But it's still evolving. So some teams have gone in and come back out. Some are still looking at it. USL is developing in Division III, which may be interesting to certain other MLS teams that haven't, made the foray in. So it is fascinating to see how that continues to evolve. Overall, look, from where I sit, it's been good for the sport. It's been good for player development in terms of players getting the opportunity. I was just watching a game this weekend with Vancouver, who had a second team in USL, and we played San Antonio. He played against Alphonso Davies 2 years ago. He was 15 years old. And then you watch him, having that opportunity to get those pro games at a young age in a proper league, playing in front of 8,000, 10,000 fans, probably in some ways accelerated his development. And now he's at 17 years old. He's doing the same things in Major League Soccer. So I think it's overall it's a positive, and it'll be interesting to see where that relationship, partnership continues to grow in the future.
Well, let's talk about expansion with San Antonio FC. You guys want to be an MLS side. Where are we on those talks?
So we're one of the 12 formal applicants for this next round of Major League Soccer expansion, which was submitted, January, February of 2017. As you guys know, 2 markets now have been selected as part of the first 2 of the 4, Nashville and Cincinnati. We continue to believe that San Antonio would be an asset to Major League Soccer if selected for a number of reasons. One, this is the type of market that's been successful in MLS. I compare it to the markets I talked about earlier, of similar size, Portland, Orlando, Salt Lake. Ironically, all markets that had one Major League team, an NBA team, before Major League Soccer came in. Same dynamic we have here in San Antonio. The benefit is the owner of the NBA team is the same owner of the soccer team. So proven track record of operating a successful Major League team in this market. We think soccer would resonate similarly. We already have a purpose-built soccer stadium, which you would have seen last week here for the Open Cup game against FC Dallas, that admittedly would need to be expanded. It currently seats 8,000 seats. Our plans would be to expand it to about 20,000 seats in order to move to Major League Soccer, and it's well located within the market in terms of accessibility. So, look, there's, every one of those markets has a lot to offer and bring to the table. We're certainly biased in terms of our feeling that the club, the ownership group, facilities would add value to Major League Soccer, and we continue to work through that process.
Absolutely, Tim. And while I was there, I actually noticed there were some beams actually on the ground. Are those ready and just waiting for something to come up so you can expand?
Well, Courtney Hardman, who was the owner of the San Antonio Scorpions, which were the predecessor of San Antonio FC, when he had the stadium built it contemplating future expansion, potentially MLS expansion or expansion in the other league that may occur in the future. So there are blueprints and plans to be able to expand it along that original vision. So that certainly would be one option. And then, we've spent internal time and energy looking at other different ways that this stadium could be expanded as well to meet or exceed Major League Soccer standards. So a couple different routes that could go, but some of what you saw there was probably, yes, part of the thinking for a phase 2 or a phase 3 of the current Toyota Field configuration.
Now, what do you make of Precourt's decision of relocation?
Yeah, it's not really something that we're focused on here from a day-to-day standpoint. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we think that the best way, for us to prove that San Antonio is worthy of MLS expansion is to operate the best possible USL team here in terms of market performance and everything else, and putting that structure in place. So, frankly, from my position, that's what we're spending our time in and day out, which is the things that we can control, and things out of our control will get resolved when they get resolved, and we'll take on that situation as it resolves itself.
Absolutely, Tim. And just out of curiosity, has there been any communication between you or between San Antonio FC and MLS regarding that potential relocation?
Look, we have regular communication with Major League Soccer about our expansion bid and all things related to our expansion bid. So again, that's pretty much as far as I go into the specifics of that. But anything that has pertinence or relevance to that going forward is stuff that we've talked with Major League Soccer about in the past. But the stuff that you've read out there is obviously a factor for us, or factors for us in this process. But at this point, the best thing that we can do is just keep our head down, keep working, and be prepared for the opportunity if it arises.
I just want to push back a little bit more. Would the relocation potential of having an MLS team in Austin take San Antonio FC off the table as far as MLS expansion? And what would San Antonio FC do in response?
To answer your first question, I don't believe so. I believe they're two different markets. But it's not a conversation that we've had recently. And the second one is more speculative and not something that I get into.
Well, Tim, was there anything else you wanted to add about San Antonio FC or just the future of San Antonio FC?
Yeah, I think, what I'd say, and it pretty much summarizes what we've talked about here before, is what we're working to do here is build the best possible professional soccer club, irrespective of what league we're affiliated with at any point in time. Obviously, if you're in Major League Soccer, there's a scaling to what you do. The model's different, and the facilities are bigger, and the staffs are bigger, and everything's a little bit bigger. But if our future is in the short to medium term, especially as one in the USL, then it's equally as bright. USL as a league is really growing by leaps and bounds, and we're proud to be a part of it. And it would be a great platform for us to continue to build what we're doing, and looks like we're encouraged that we'll have no shortage of support within this community to build on that foundation as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tim. It was really interesting hearing about San Antonio FC and what y'all are doing down south, and I got a chance to see it, and it was awesome. So thank you for joining us, Tim.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Well, there you have it. The Austin, Houston, and Dallas perspective, and then you got San Antonio. It's crazy stuff that's going on with the state of Texas and MLS. But I mean, it all comes to one question: is where do we think this is all going? And I think the simple answer is we just don't know. There's too many variables, too many factors into the decision of relocation.
Yeah, I think we just don't know. If I were a betting man, which I am, I wouldn't bet because I don't know. To be honest with you, there's nothing you can say like, oh, this is going to Austin. Oh, they're going to stay in Columbus. You just genuinely don't know. I mean, if you're MLS, you figured a way to get it done in Austin. That's what we should expect. But it's 2018, and as people say, we're doing crazy stuff.
Does it look bad if they don't go to Austin?
Yes.
I don't know if it makes it look well. Yeah, if they relocate, it looks bad.
It makes it look terrible when you think.
Yeah.
It makes a market that wants MLS says no, we don't want you, and then you're stuck with your hands tied. You can't go back to Columbus. You're forced to sell probably at a discounted rate, right? Because
it's still going to be more than what he bought the club for.
Right, but it's still going to be less than what he could have sold it for, potentially. So you're kind of stuck with your hands tied for Anthony Precourt. You look like a fool. You get forced out of a potentially profitable league, right? Because it's growing year in and year out. So you're pretty sad for Anthony Precourt, and you look like a complete idiot, too. There has to be a backup plan, which is why we keep referring to Sacramento. There's just so many things that could happen. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Anthony Precourt stays in the league when it goes to the Republic. Maybe the Republic's bid, Maybe he just gets out of the league in general and goes to Columbus, or to move to Austin. There's just, I don't know what's going to happen. I think Jake does, though.
Right, yeah, I know everything. No, I don't. I really don't know what to expect, what the outcome of this will be. The nice thing Precourt does have is that rumored, the rumored, I guess, investment into Sacramento, if that's on the table for him, despite save his nose, spite his face, is to basically, sell Columbus and then jump on board with Sacramento. He makes a small profit with the crew and then can continue to make money off Sacramento and MLS. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out.
We really will have to wait and see, and we're going to continue our coverage regarding the relocation process with the Columbus Crew and where it all ends up. Follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. And, I don't know, share the show. Subscribe. Tell us what you think. Give us your thoughts.
Give us 5-star ratings.
We always enjoy when we get commentary because it always ends up being about Jake and something stupid he said. So if you found something dumb that Jake said, please let us know so we can mock him because it's always fun. Until next time, listeners, thanks again.